The smell of my daughter's burned teddy bear was still in my robes when Constance Whitmore walked into my courtroom like she owned it. That same fake psychotic smile, like the one she wore when she poured bleach over my dead wife's roses, or maybe the one she had while she watched my house burn to the ground with everything I loved inside. But she'd made one fatal mistake. She never bothered to learn who she was destroying. I wasn't just some quiet single dad she could bully into submission. I was a federal judge, and she had just committed arson against the one man in this district with the power to end her life without ever touching her. 2 years earlier, I thought I was living the American dream. My name's Thaddeus Morrison. Thad to friends. A 15-year federal prosecutor who spent his career putting away cartel bosses and corrupt senators. My 12-year-old daughter Zara and I lived in a little blue craftsman home in Willowbrook Heights. It wasn't fancy, but every inch of that place held memories of Sarah, my wife. She'd painted the trim herself while pregnant, planted roses out back that somehow survived every Michigan winter. Even after cancer took her, those roses made the house feel alive. We had neighbors who brought pies, kids who played baseball in the cul-de-sac, and block parties that lasted until midnight. It was the kind of neighborhood where people still waved from driveways and helped carry your groceries. Then one day, the devil moved in next door in designer heels and a white Escalade. Constance Whitmore, bleach blonde polished nails, perfume strong enough to choke a horse. She introduced herself as the HOA Compliance Coordinator, a title that didn't exist because, frankly, our HOA didn't exist either. It had died sometime in the Reagan era, and none of us missed it. But Constance saw opportunity the way vultures see roadkill. Within 72 hours, she was marching around with a clipboard snapping pictures of people's lawns, measuring mailboxes, threatening fines for things no one had heard of. Her first target, my mailbox, an old cast-iron piece Sarah had painted herself. Constance decided it was non-compliant with neighborhood standards and demanded I replace it or pay $50 a day in fines. I sent her a letter, a polite, lawyerly version of shove it. I cited federal law, reminded her that fake HOA enforcement against federal employees could get her real prison time. I thought that would end it. It didn't. It started a war. 3 mornings later, I found her in my backyard spraying herbicide over Sarah's rose garden. "Just helping with your pest problem," she chirped, smiling like a shark. I could smell the chemicals from 10 feet away. Those roses weren't just flowers, they were the last heartbeat of my wife. When I told her to stop, she laughed. "I'm protecting the community, Thad. Bees can be dangerous." Watching her walk away, heels clicking over the dying petals, something inside me cracked. I installed cameras that same night, 6 of them, every angle covered. And sure enough, within days, I caught her sneaking through my yard at 2 in the morning with bleach and forged HOA notices. I took the evidence to the police station myself, ready to end this madness. Sergeant Rick Bellows didn't even open the folder. "Constance, she's a pillar of our community," he said. "Maybe you're just having trouble adjusting since your wife passed." That metallic taste of rage filled my mouth. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just a bad neighbor, it was a network, and I was surrounded. What followed was 18 months of psychological warfare, anonymous complaints, harassment. My sister's car towed in the middle of the night by a company called Bellows Recovery Services, owned by the cop's brother. Fake parking rules, fake fines, fake authority. Every move I made, Constance was one step ahead. She wanted to break me to make me lose my temper, my job, my child. And for a while, she almost did. The night I almost gave up, I found Zara on the floor taping together a torn photo of her mother. She was crying, whispering, "I can fix it if I'm careful." That broke me. I sat there in the dark, staring at the pieces of our life she was trying to put back together, and realized I'd spent my career fighting criminals who looked like gangsters, but evil didn't always wear tattoos and leather jackets. Sometimes it wore pearl earrings and carried a clipboard. That night I stopped being a victim. I called in a favor from an old friend at the FBI, Marcus Webb. "Marcus, I need a background check," I told him. "Something's off about my neighbor." 48 hours later he called back. "Buddy, your suburban terrorist is drowning in debt, back taxes, maxed out credit cards, husband out of work." But here's the kicker. She's been collecting HOA fees from your neighbors for 18 months. 340 grand. I remember sitting there in silence, the gears in my prosecutor brain turning. There was no HOA, no board, no fund, just Constance pocketing every cent. That was the moment the scales tipped. I reached out to every contact I had, IRS, DOJ, Civil Rights Division, FBI, Economic Crimes. Within a week, we had a joint task force investigating Constance for mail fraud, wire fraud, and housing discrimination. But we needed evidence, real hard evidence, and Constance, drunk on her imaginary power, was about to hand it to us. She tried to frame me next. Broke into my house, planted forged bank statements, and fake letters suggesting I'd taken bribes. The next day, a local news headline screamed, "Federal judge under investigation for corruption." Then Child Protective Services showed up at my door. Someone had filed an anonymous report accusing me of drug use and neglect. Zara clung to me terrified. The investigator, an older woman who'd clearly seen through 1,000 lies, took one look around and sighed. "Mr. Morrison, whoever called this in wanted to destroy you." I nodded. They're about to destroy themselves instead. By that point, the feds had everything. Wiretaps, bank records, fake invoices. They even caught Constance's cousin Derek bragging on the phone about inspection jobs that involved trespassing and intimidation. Still, part of me wondered how far she'd go when she realized the walls were closing in. I got my answer 2 weeks later. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I was in court when my phone started buzzing, 6 missed calls, one message that froze my blood. House fire at 847 Maple Street. My house. I broke every traffic law on the way home. 3 blocks out, I could already smell the smoke. Fire trucks lined the street. Neighbors gathered in silence, and there was Zara covered in soot standing on Mrs. Lucy's lawn crying. "Daddy, I called 911, she whispered. "I saw smoke. I thought you were home." The house was gone. Sarah's roses, her furniture, every photograph ash. Fire investigators said accelerant had been used. Arson. And then they found it. Mrs. Lucy's doorbell camera had caught Derek entering my basement an hour before the blaze carrying a duffel bag. His fingerprints were everywhere. He confessed before midnight. Constance said if we burned the judge's house, he'd be too busy to ruin her life. But the real nail in her coffin was the recording. Constance's voice clear as day on the FBI wiretap. "Make sure you use enough accelerant to destroy everything. Start in the basement, he keeps his files there, and if someone gets hurt, they brought it on themselves." That line still echoes in my head. That night, federal agents surrounded her mansion like it was a war zone. Constance stepped out in silk pajamas, mascara perfect, smirking like this was another HOA inspection. And then she saw the badges. The guns. The agents reading her rights. For the first time, she looked afraid. They dragged her out in cuffs while neighbors cheered from behind their curtains. I didn't smile. I just stood there with my daughter in my arms, watching the woman who'd destroyed our lives finally realize she wasn't untouchable. 6 months later came the trial, United States versus Constance Whitmore. The courtroom was packed. Reporters, neighbors, even the people she'd extorted sitting front row. She shuffled in wearing an orange jumpsuit, hair greasy, eyes hollow. The Queen of Willowbrook Heights reduced to prisoner 47891. When the prosecutor played that recording, "Make sure you use enough accelerant," you could feel the air vanish from the room. Some jurors covered their mouths. One woman started crying. The judge asked if Constance had anything to say before sentencing. Her attorney begged her to stay quiet. Of course she didn't. "I was protecting our neighborhood," she snapped. "No one is above community standards, not even a federal judge." The gallery gasped. She'd just confessed on record to targeting a federal officer and committing arson in the process. The judge leaned forward, voice cold and steady. "Mrs. Whitmore, you showed zero remorse. You terrorized families, stole hundreds of thousands, and nearly killed a child. I hereby sentence you to 15 years in federal prison, no parole." And that was it. No dramatic music, no applause. Just the sound of shackles as they led her away. The same hands that once held clipboards and bleach bottles now bound behind her back. The same smile gone replaced by the blank stare of someone who finally understood what accountability feels like. As she passed me, she looked up just once. For a second I saw confusion in her eyes, like she still couldn't process that the man she'd tried to destroy was the one who'd brought her down. But I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. The gavel dropped, and her world ended. Justice doesn't always arrive with fireworks. Sometimes it walks in quietly wearing handcuffs and sits down in the same courtroom where it once thought it ruled. And that day justice finally had a face.